Hey everyone, welcome to the Mortgage Leadership Outlook. I'm Andrew Berman coming to you from NMP TV in our NMP TV studios, which right now is our basement. That's what we're working out of right now. So thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't joined us before, which probably you have, we come to you every Wednesday, meeting with the greatest minds in the mortgage business, the leaders, people actually who have been helping us guide us through some unbelievable times. Today's no exception. Got a great leader, good friend of ours, a great friend for the mortgage broker. This is actually someone who's what do you got, John? I got about 2 decades dedicated to wholesale.
Yeah, I think I'm passing 25 years now, and outside of the first year and a half where I was a retail LO on the street, the remainder part of my career has been in TPO and broker specific for sure.
Yep. So John Gibson, who recently joined us, this back in October, recently joined Flagstar as senior vice president, the third-party originations lending. Flagstar's has been someone that's been super committed to the mortgage broker, and even actually, let's call a spade a spade. When everyone was throwing the mortgage broker out, 2008. Flagstar was there. Flagstar actually, not only was there, actually, was supporting the mortgage broker with investing in technology, doing what they possibly could, to help the brokers, who at that time actually were having difficulty, grow their business. So I think it's a great thing. John, talk to us a little bit about, what got you sucked into the mortgage business?
Yeah, it's funny. I did this coming straight out of college. So I went to Drexel in Philly. So for all my fellow Dragons out there, go Dragons. And I literally took the summer off, right? Last summer after graduating college. And I was hanging out down the Jersey Shore, Stone Harbor to be exact, for people in that neck of the woods. And a buddy of mine was working in the mortgage industry. And he's like, hey, you should apply. And I did. And what I loved about it was the sales aspect of it, right? You got rewarded for the investment that you put into your work every single day, and literally went straight from graduating at the Jersey Shore, took a job and started July of '94, and right in the business. It's the only thing I've ever done since I graduated college.
Wow. So here you are now. Now let me ask you a question. So. How far was Cherokee High School in New Jersey? How far actually was that from Drexel? Like how far were you from actually? Did you go to school?
Yeah, I really ventured out from the nest of growing up in my parents' house. It was about a 20-minute drive from where I grew up to Drexel. Yeah, so my commute from Cherokee High School, which shout out to all the Cherokee alumni. In Marlton, New Jersey, I made the 20-minute commute over the Ben Franklin Bridge to Drexel. Good news is I did live on campus, though. I didn't live with my parents, so I kind of branched out and formed a lot of my mindset at Drexel. So yeah, good 20-minute drive.
All right, so here you are actually. So you're at Drexel University now. Your first position, let's go looking at this right here. Was Wachovia, which was like listen, these guys are the inventor of like the option arms, right? And I believe actually option arms started at Wachovia, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically it was Wachovia when we got acquired. I started with World Savings. Yeah, so it was World Savings, Golden West Financial. Probably one of the originators, inventors of, option arm, turned it into what we call a pick a pay and started there as a retail loan officer. And then about a year and a half in, I got the opportunity to switch to being a wholesale account executive. And man, did like my eyes just open to this industry and what was out there from a standpoint of what you could do day in and day out from a business perspective, and literally have been in that line ever since. Once I made the switch from retail to broker.
So and like what was the thing? Like where did you actually find that connection? Where did you like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is like, this is what I want to do in mortgage banking.
Yeah, the thing to me, and really even to this day, I love the fact that you're working with other business owners in the mortgage industry, specifically in mortgage sales, and helping them realize their, goals and business plans, not only for their company, but I looked at every individual that I dealt with as a self-employed business owner, whether they owned the company or whether they originated or whether they were a processor at the company. To me, that was my sales force, right? That is who I tried to educate and become a valuable part of their team so they could reach their goals. And I just loved it. I think a lot of that had to do with my sports background, like playing sports growing up, being captains on teams. I just love that leadership type of role and taking that into the broker space and helping people realize a business plan and being a part of their success. I really thrived in that environment.
Interesting. So talk a little bit about actually the sports background. Like how did and this is something that I find with a lot of the top performers, in business. It's not just the mortgage industry, but what is it about actually, what you learned actually out on the field, that has helped you out on, the sales field.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when I grew up, right, I played all the sports, right? I wasn't focused on whichever one was my best one, right? I got exposed to all of them. But basketball was by far my best sport, right? Growing up, those of you who know me probably find that funny, all 5'8.5" of me playing basketball, but that was my best sport by far. And I was a point guard, right? That size is going to dictate being a point guard. And I think there's a lot of teamwork that goes into being an athlete, right? There's a lot of hard work and practice. There's a lot of leadership, right? As a point guard, for those of you that play basketball or don't play basketball, you're kind of the general on the floor, right? The ball's always in your hand. You're bringing the ball up. You're setting up the offense. You're running. You're kind of like the coach on the floor, right? And I think you learn a lot in, competing fairly, teamwork, and then ultimately good sportsmanship, right? And I think that instills a lot of things that are successful in the business world, coming out of a sports background.
So now just think about this. I'm curious of the other leaders that are at Flagstar, previously, at Caliber. Would you say actually that the majority of them have some kind of a sports background? Do you think actually is that a common thread between actually everyone?
Yeah, and I think it's varying in sports, right? There are some people at Flagstar that, were in track, right? And I know people that I've worked with in past, like at Caliber, that played football in college, right? That were at leadership levels. So I definitely think you see, and look, let's face it, if you're in sales, right, there's a party that wakes up every day and you're competitive, right? So I think in a lot of instances, you can be very competitive without playing sports, but I think playing sports puts that natural competitiveness into your DNA if you've played sports over time, for sure. I think it plays a role.
Yeah, I agree totally, 100%. I think that having that sports, having that the competitive nature, put into you early on in your life will allow you to be competitive, in your career. And listen, competitive could mean actually beating yourself. Could be actually anything. It doesn't mean competitive. Actually doesn't mean actually that that you're against other people. But so I got Joel Berman, who is my father, and by the way, it is his birthday today. So happy birthday, Mr. Berman. But he's got the first question in the room here. John, we know the mortgage broker is doing well despite the overall pandemic effect on the economy. Do you think the rest of 2020 into 2021 will continue as a success story for the mortgage industry?
Yeah. So first, hey, happy birthday to your dad. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Yeah, look, I think as you look at the pandemic, right, and you look at the impact to the overall economy, you can certainly say that, mortgage is one of those sectors, and housing, right, is one of those sectors that has, continued to see or has realized an uptick, right? So, I think if you look at the rest of 2020, I think rates, right, going into 2022, by all accounts, from, people that are way more educated and have a much higher expertise on this than I do, are all saying that, rates are going to be historically low and stay at these levels probably, going into 2022 for certain, as certain as you can be in this industry. So And I know Black Knight just put something out, even, in regards to the number. I think it's like 19 million homeowners are still, able to refinance and benefit upwards of 50 basis points, if not more, from a standpoint of doing a refi. So I think you're going to see, 2020 continue to finish out strong as we get into the fourth quarter. And then 2021, I think, will be, a very strong year. I mean, the overall size of the market's probably going to decrease slightly. I think, anything from Fannie, Freddie, and the NBA is now predicting that 2020 is going to be about a $3.5 trillion market. And I think their latest forecast for 2021 shows, about a $1 trillion drop to 2.4 trillion. But put that in context, right? It's 2.4 trillion. It's not like it's going from 3.5 down to a $1 trillion market. I think refinance activity will be strong through first quarter and the second quarter. I think our purchase market will hit at normal time, as you get into the spring market and the purchase market, where it was a little delayed this year. And then I think over the course of the year, refinances will probably, take a backseat to purchase. But yeah, there's nothing, sustainable or that you would point to think that the segment or the place that we're in right now from a mortgage perspective is going to change.
Yeah. A little comment from Kasai Dung. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, and so I'm just going to leave it up there. Joe Berman, if we can ignore the elephant in the room, FHFA mandatory fee of 0.5%. All right, we don't necessarily need to. I don't necessarily need your commentary on that. But yeah.
Yeah, look, here's the one thing I will tell you about that, though, Andrew. Right, like that's a whole philosophical conversation. We can debate that till the cows come home with FHFA and the reason behind it and what they're doing. The one thing I will tell you, though, is if you look at that Black Knight study, even with the 50 basis point hit for adverse market fee for refinances, that number of 19 million, it doesn't drop significantly for the number of people that could still benefit from refinancing. The benefit maybe isn't as great because of that hit, but the opportunity is still there. So I think there is somewhat of a little bit of a misperception that it is going to completely eliminate refinances. That's not the case. It just really isn't, based off of the statistics.
Yeah. So can you let's go back to March. Let's talk to us actually. How Flagstar reacted to the shutdown of our economy, of just all business. So talk to us so here it is, March. What did actually that look like for Flagstar Bank?
Yeah, I think similar to most people in the industry, right? It were interesting times. I will tell you the one thing. I think that, being at Flagstar and being a federally regulated bank, right, through the SEC, obviously we have several types of disaster plans that are constantly being reviewed and monitored, right? Yeah. So if anybody can be prepared for this type of situation, which I think that's kind of a interesting way to phrase it, but we were. And we were one of the first to move. We moved very quickly. We immediately implemented our disaster plan with regards to individuals working from home. We tested it on a Thursday, and by Thursday night, our leadership team had made the decision immediately that we were moving to remote, and we've done that way ever since, and we continue to do that to this day. And I think what it enabled for a lot of our business partners is that comfort and that peace of mind to know that in dealing with Flagstar, again, federally regulated bank, right, that, open book, not only from a financial perspective, but from business plans and strategies, we were able to transition every single employee that works in our headquarters, which basically is the part of the Flagstar operation that manufactures the transactions for our business partners, to remote, and did it seamlessly. Quite honestly, and we've been functioning, like I said, in that environment ever since, and we've actually seen increased productivity and a lot of other benefits with it, and most importantly, the benefit to our employees with regards to looking out for their health and their safety and their well-being. And I don't think everybody got there. I just think if you look at it, when we made that move and made that decision, we acted very quickly, and our business partners benefited from that.
Yeah, and so Now, the productivity gains, have they been, so you guys continuously monitor them? Because I know everyone initially actually had productivity gains because we couldn't do anything. We're locked down in our houses. You go outside, you gotta wear masks. Or our kids were kind of occupied. So I was concerned that those productivity gains were short lived. But you're saying actually, because I got to assume an organization like Flagstar, you guys are ongoing monitoring this. So you're saying it's still continued to having those productivity gains.
Yeah, and look, there are challenges to it, right? As you mentioned, Andrew, right? I think those are all valid points around in the beginning with countries and the country and the state and counties locked down and that continuing to ebb and flow. I think there was that natural concern of, well, of course you're going to see increased productivity because what does anybody have to do? Their kids aren't playing sports, they're not in school, all these other things. What we've realized as time has evolved, and to your point, right, we continue to monitor that productivity on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, is we haven't seen that drop off, which is a good thing. And look, that's in the situation where people are taking advantage of time off and vacation time, right? Because they've been able to, and now kids are back at school and they're realizing the challenges of some kids working right at their workstation with them, right? Because they're all doing school in some instances online versus being back. But yeah, as of right now, there is look, one, I can say with 100% confidence. The health and well-being of our employees comes first and foremost. And then secondly, the ability for them to work remotely and the advantages that they pick up personally in their life from being able to do that, as well as what we're seeing from a productivity, we continue to monitor that, and we're pretty excited about where we're at.
That's cool. That's great. And any bits of guidance or ideas actually that you could share with, because, most of the people watching this do not have Flagstar resources. So a lot of small business, a lot of, independent mortgage companies watching this. Any kind of advice or guidance for things actually that you've used to kind of help make sure that those productivity gains, still maintain, and more importantly, actually, find ways to kind of create the culture within the organization when you're not meeting face to face. Because Flagstar, to me, actually, that's something that there's a reason why Flagstar employees, account executives, have a much longer tenure than any other company out there, most other companies out there. And I believe it's part of it, that culture. But how do you still do that? How do you still like to keep that culture, front and center, when we're doing everything, in Zoom?
Yeah, that's been a really interesting kind of evolution, I guess, if you want to call it, as this whole pandemic's been, progressing. Because I think you're right? One of the things I think, coming to Flagstar, the culture, you hear about it, right? But then and you mentioned earlier, I'm actually coming up on my year anniversary in October. It's one thing to kind of get under the hood a little bit in that, recruiting process, but it's a whole nother thing to come on board and be part of the team and see the culture. So you're right. There are definitely challenges there. I will tell you, I think you need to be creative, right? It's one thing to say, hey, we're just going to move all our meetings to, hey, we have a national call and we're just going to do that, via Zoom, or we typically bring everybody in for a quarterly meeting. Now we're not doing that. We're just going to do it on WebEx, right? To me, I think where we've implemented some things that I thought have worked in helping build that culture is, interjecting some, different type of strategies or fun into the meeting. So I'll give you a couple examples, right? When we got into this originally, of course, we moved to Zoom and WebEx. And one of the first meetings I held outside of the traditional meetings we do was a simple, happy hour for a virtual happy hour for the entire organization and my ops partners that support us. That was the first one. Then the second one was we did the same thing, and we did like a game night where we did you were at a bar and you were broken off into teams and it was a trivia night, right? And so we did that to keep people engaged. And then the third one, we did like a Family Feud contest where we broke people off into teams and we actually played Family Feud virtually online. And we did like an NCAA bracket where teams would win in advance. And we had prizes for the winners and things like that. And then look, the last one I did a virtual concert, right? There was a local musician here in Virginia that I follow. He was furloughed from his job, and obviously at that moment in time, there weren't too many, jobs that he was getting as far as going up and singing and playing, his guitar. So we had a virtual kind of concert where I got him on. We did it on Zoom. He sang 4 or 5 songs. We had some interaction with the group. We requested songs, and we did it for about an hour and a half. And it wasn't really, none of that was business related though, right? We still have those meetings, but how do you interject some things that you would do in person? So I would tell you, get creative, think outside the box. And look, some of that we were, reinvesting in our local community, right? I hired that musician for an hour and a half. And I'll tell you what, that's probably one of the best things we did during this pandemic, of just unwinding, thanking everybody for all their efforts. We included our ops partners. And I think it was a great event. It was a great way to keep the morale and the team and the culture, moving forward, because let's face it, we're all locked in front of our computers for the most part right now. And what can you do to interject some of that culture into that environment? So I tell you, that's some of the things we've done. That's
great. And including the ops thing, people, I'm sure that's, especially today, that is so important. The ops, the ops staff is like they're under attack, just constantly getting offers from everyone trying to get them to switch. So yeah, like that's great. And I'm curious, like, were you spending time? Were you like planning on moving, your family to Michigan? Was that the plan initially?
Yeah, it's funny. We have one daughter, and when I started the job a year ago, she was a senior in high school. So, had we uprooted her and moved her to Michigan for her senior year, how well that would have went. I had worked with Flagstar on delaying a move until after she started college, which she started this year, and it's actually on campus at her university. But I will tell you, she's at Kent State out in Ohio. Yeah. And 2 of her classes are somewhat in person, 1 day a week, and the rest is all online. So enjoying the experience as much as she can, even though it's a unique experience right now. So the idea was I was going to move to Michigan in September, October of this year. I think this has really challenged that process for us to think outside the box with regards to how we function in this world, not only today, but moving forward. So kind of reevaluating whether or not the move to Michigan is something that, needs to actually happen and be there physically every single day.
Yeah. Like, why? Like, what do you have to do? I mean, because anyway, actually, I'm assuming you're doing a lot of traveling. So if we look at actually, obviously October, so at the MBA, but like November, December, January, and February, were you doing a lot of traveling? I know normally, you have a pretty crazy travel schedule.
Yeah. So prior to March, I was still for, the last 12 years, I was on a plane every Monday and flying home to my family Thursday or Friday night for pretty much the last 12 years. And at Flagstar, I was doing the same thing, right? When I came on board, within a week, the MBA in Austin was taking place. So there was that. Then there was a couple other conventions. I was flying back and forth to headquarters every week. And after that first 90 days, the next phase was going to be, okay, now I'm going out to all the marketplaces to visit clients with AEs. And the pandemic kind of put a stop to that, right? So I haven't really traveled since March of this year, but looking forward to when we can get back to some of that normal, time where you can go out and see some clients. But to your point, I think a lot of companies are going to rethink exactly how this new normal is going to look moving forward. Because if you can be productive, right, there are ways to gain and grow your volume and grow business and grow market share. And they don't have to be the old tried and true way of you need to be out in the field as 4 weeks out of the month. I don't need to be flying all over the country to do that. We've actually figured out a way to kind of exist, even though we haven't been able to do the things the way we've always done them in the past.
So, and I mean, are you doing actually, are you doing broker meetings with your account executives? Like, so are you actually doing Zoom account executive broker meetings?
Yeah, anything like that we're hosting, whether it be trainings, seminars, meetings, you were utilizing every technology at our disposal, whether it be Zoom, WebEx, you name it. So yeah. Now look, some of our AEs in their local marketplace, as states have opened back up, as long as you weren't traveling out of your market as far as getting on a plane and hotels and things like that. Again, we're kind of looking out for our employees' safety, right? But in your local market, if it's open back up and the business partner's inviting you in, we've kind of left some discretion to the account executive to do that, but also masks, social distancing, sanitizer, all that stuff, but not mandatory. That is voluntary on the AE's portion if they want to go visit their clients.
Yeah. Something it's such a, you have to judge it based on your community. There's so much. Listen, I have one town away from me. If you're not wearing a mask and walking on the street, they look at you funny. The next town over, if you go into a store, wearing a mask, they look at you funny. So it's like you got to know actually your clientele.
You do. You really do, for sure. But again, I think it's first and foremost, right? You got to practice and do what's right for you. And the one thing we've shown is, as an industry, not just Flagstar, as an industry, we're really resourceful, right? Like you mentioned earlier, I've been doing this since the early 90s. I've seen a lot of change in this industry, and there's a lot more coming. But we're pretty resourceful in how we function and move forward. And that's one of the things I love about this industry.
Yeah. I mean, how many times was the broker doomed? How many times actually did we actually think we're never going to get no yield spread premium? What are we going to do? There's been so many times where the death of the mortgage broker was greatly exaggerated. That being said, I mean, so what do we do to keep relevant? Like, how do we stay because right now, and there is no question about it. I believe that doing business with independent mortgage companies, mortgage brokers, smaller mortgage companies is better for your community. That's just my personal belief. I believe actually when you do that, the money's staying in your local community. It's owned locally. They're hiring locally. It's not like it's like a branch where the profits shared with shareholders that are anywhere in the entire world. This is actually, the best way to invest in your local community is doing business locally. And right now, mortgage brokers are in this sweet place because they have, companies like you offering them, unbelievable rates, great technology, a great service, so they can actually beat their retail, arms. It's amazing actually, how where the mortgage broker is today. But what about the future? Like, what do we do actually as mortgage brokers to make sure we still actually, can continue to grow that market share and still be what I believe is actually, the best choice, for consumers today?
Yeah, look, I think you hit it on the head with a couple points, right? Like, one, the thing I've always loved about, on the broker space, or call it third party, is in a lot of cases, right? In every case, they are in the community. Right, the community that they serve, again, take the pandemic out of the equation for a second. They're at the sporting events, they're at the PTA meetings, they're at the local events, the churches, everything in the community. It's what this is based in, right? And you're reinvesting in the community. So I've always loved that about the space. I will tell you, in my opinion, Andrew, there is something I think, I've been saying it all year long. It's back to the basics, or remembering the basics. We've done a couple events throughout the year with our business partners that have brought, I think, pretty good value around that concept. And I think one of the things that everybody needs to be doing more so than ever, right? Like, when you're busier than you've ever been, pipelines are bigger than they've ever been, people are going to make more money than probably in some instances they've ever made in their careers at this in 2020. A lot of people make the mistake of not looking to the future and what they needed to make themselves sustainable and relevant as the market shifts. So I will tell you, investing in 2021 now, not when 2021 hits. I think things like, a business plan and sticking to it and holding yourself accountable, that's important for the industry. I think from the broker space perspective, I think investing in your company And when a lot of times individuals look at like, how can I mitigate expense to maximize my profits? I think that's looking at it wrong. I think you need to invest and spend so that you can make yourself sustainable 5-10 years down the road. Yeah. I have seen in my 25 plus years doing this, so many people make hay in these type of refinance situations. And then the following year or the year and a half later, they didn't invest in their business because they were blinded by the now. They were blinded by pipeline's bigger than ever, making money hand over fist, just keep moving forward. And they didn't think about the next 6 to 12 months. And I think if people do that now, I mean, look, it's going to be a good year next year. But if you're not focusing on purchase business today, and I continue to scream at the mountaintops about this, if you're not investing your money and your activities into growing your purchase book of referral business today, you are missing out on the opportunity before it comes, because I guarantee you what's going to happen. Everybody is going to shift to that come April, May, or June of next year. And you're not going to be able to do it as effectively as if you're doing it now, because there's less people calling on those referral relationships for purchase referrals today than they will be April, May of next year. So I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do technology-wise, being partnered with the right lenders, to fill your needs for your community. Those are all valuable, important, and lenders will continue. Look, we'll do it. Everybody else will do it. We'll continue to enhance the technology and product offerings. But I think there's a little bit of personal investment in your own business that people get blinded by when everything's just running off the charts. So that would be my challenge, Andrew. I think that's one of the biggest things we can do.
So the biggest problem is when you're working like 17-hour days, when you're working 7 days a week in some of these cases, when I just talked to someone today who's been watching the data, the amount of originators that are doing that have already year to date done over 250 transactions blew my mind. And we're actually going to be talking about that next week on our Mortgage Leadership Outlook. But this is the time to plan. And they say actually the failure to plan is a plan to fail. So this is the time to actually start working on those business plans, and doing what you can actually to make sure that your 2021, that you continue to have the same success that you're having this year. I don't think it's going to really slow down anytime soon. I think it's going to be another unbelievable year next year. But at some point, the music is going to stop, and we need to do whatever we can to kind of be prepared and have that plan. And whatever that plan is, if it's, someone just commented from the National Association of Divorce Professionals, sorry, first day with a new mouth, National Association of Divorce Professionals, like if that's your market, if it's, focusing on the real estate agents who are just lonely now, real estate agents, like if I was new in the business, I would be actually, that's who I would be talking, because no one's talking to these people now.
Look, there's a lot. People always equate purchase to real estate agents. Don't get me wrong. Obviously that there's a correlation there. But there are accountants, financial planners, there's attorneys, divorce attorneys, there's builders, right? Let's start taking a look at the numbers, right? Look at the builder sentiment report that just came out, one of the highest levels ever from a standpoint of, that since that study has been kind of out there as far as the builder sentiment. And it all has to do with inventory, right? It's a supply versus demand issue right now. And if the resales aren't there, then you start looking at what the builders are projecting. They're looking for a strong 2021. So to your point, I mean, to me, it's about accountability, right? Like take control of your own business. And I know it's easier said than done, because to what you said, right? People are working harder and longer than they have in a very long time. And in some instances, ever in their career. And that's reaping the benefits of a tremendous year. But the people that continue to excel and flourish and grow are the ones that can see through the now, the today, the next week, the next month, and understand that they need to be planning for the next 12 months to 18 months now. Because what happens is a lot of people don't start doing it until it comes up on them. And guess what? At that point, it's too late, right? So to me, look, it is about investing in your business. It's about investing in technology. Some people have different goals, right, of growing, their organization or growing their book of business. You need to sit down and hold yourself accountable to them. And that typically starts with, having some goals, staying committed to them, revisiting them, right? Just don't do it one time a year and then pull it back up and review it at the end of next year. Have checkpoints in there, right, where you're doing some of this stuff. And look, it's all, honestly, Andrew, I go back to when I first started. I'll never forget this. I'll throw a plug out to him. His name's Ron Wivag. He was one of my managers when I first started. And in going through training, it was very simple. What do you want to make from an income perspective, right? Okay, here's what I want to make. Okay, well then start backing into and I'm just saying this from a standpoint of understanding goals.
Yeah.
It was, I want to do X in my first year. Okay, well then I'm going to have to close X amount of loans. To do that, I'm going to have to bring in X amount of applications because there's going to be a fallout, right?
Yeah.
To do that, I need to set X amount of appointments on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
To do that, I have to make X amount, and this is back in the 90s, right? I have to do this many phone calls to set up these appointments. And then you track all that. Now, look, it's a lot different with these things, right? And all the technology is in our hands. But it's amazing to me how much this industry has changed. But at the core of it, it is those basic things that we need to do and invest in and hold our own self personally accountable to. If I'm not reaching my goals, it's not because of somebody else. It's because of me.
Yeah.
And I think it's that self-accountability. But I love that. I mean, again, I'm giving him a prop. Ron Wivag, back in the day, it was very simple. If you have a goal, establish the goal, and then you back into it with all the activities you need to do. And if I'm falling down, I need to go ramp it up in 3 or 4 more other days. And to me, that has stuck with me from the entire time I've started in this industry.
Yeah, and so basically, you go from this like your objective of what you want to do, So like I want my income to be 500,000. Well, this is how many loans. This is the loan size, and you get down to okay, this is how many times I pick up the phone today, which also means you also can give yourself a number of how much you get paid every time you pick up a phone. Which is an amazing thing, actually, if you can quantify actually and saying, listen, I know if I pick up this phone, no matter what happens on this dial, I am going to make $400 just by picking up the phone, doing this activity of picking up this giant heavy thing and doing it. So I love that. I love coming up with a plan. This is the time to actually plan actually for next year, starting to think about, between, now and then really December 31st, don't start doing it in January and start planning because there's people are going to be way ahead of you then.
Yeah. And you're talking about return on investment, right? It's ROI.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend the time and I have a goal. You can actually break it down to like per hour. Right? And I've done this before for people when I was, in a different, kind of life in this industry. You start breaking down to like, this is what you're going to earn on a per hour basis by doing these activities that lead to your end result. So, I think for as much as things change, some things stay the same, right? And to me, having a strategic plan or a business plan, whatever you want to call it, is imperative because otherwise you're kind of hitting and hoping, right? Like at the end of the day, and in markets like this, you'll be okay. But when it's a different market, and that will eventually happen, right? You need to be prepared for that. And again, I just think sometimes people wait too long, and by that point, it's too late.
Yeah, and listen, the reality is instead of dials, it's social media contacts. It's sending texts. It's it's just different activities leading up actually to that goal. So now like for you, have you already started to plan, what you want to see TPO happen for 2021?
Yeah. So for Flagstar, we started that process. Yeah, God, we're in we're going in October now. We started that process probably June, July time period where we started looking, at certain segments of what you would call a business plan. And now we're on like a third or fourth pass of what that looks like. And obviously, we'll sign off on it probably here in October. And then that'll be, something that becomes a Bible. Right, as far as what we manage to and what we hold ourselves accountable to at Flagstar for our business partners.
So listen, I can imagine what the the volume of information that's probably in your report for the business plan, but for an originator out there, what do they need to actually include in their business plan when thinking about what to do for 2021?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I would tell you there's a couple things. One, I think you need to keep it simple, right? That's the first thing, because I think if you go into too much detail, it's kind of like paralysis by analysis, right? Like you'll build this 10-page document that goes into all this detail, and then you will execute on none of it, right? And it'll just be something you pull up at the end of next year. So I think the first thing is keep it simple, right? Yeah. You set goals that are smart, and by that, they're measurable, they're specific, they're obtainable. And then you certainly need to, I think one of the key things about a business plan, any structure you use, you have to set aside time to reevaluate that plan. Yeah. And it's not once every 12 months when you're getting ready to do the next one. You should have a quarterly check-in with yourself in regards to your business plan, see how you're progressing. And honestly, there's business plans within inside business plans, right? Like you have your ultimate business plan, but then you may have 5 different, kind of mini cycles or mini business plans that get you to that end goal. You should be evaluating those on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I won't go into too much more detail, because there is something I'll talk about before we're done that Flagstar is really excited about and that I'm excited about doing.
Tell us about it.
So on October 13th from 1 to 2 Eastern, we are sponsoring. So this is free. And anybody can sign up. And I know you're going to give people my email address to reach out to me to get more information on this.
Hold on. I'll drop that.
But we are hosting a training event, 1 hour long, with a guy named Bill Hart, who's an executive coach at Building Champions. If you don't know Bill, you should look him up. Great guy. And the session is going to be called The Ultimate Guide to Building a Solid and Completely Market-Proof Business Plan. And a lot of principles of what we're talking about today are going to come into play. And the biggest thing I will tell you is, again, it's only an hour long. It is something that we're investing in the community in. So whether you're a business partner of Flagstar's or not, it's free. Join, right? At the end of the day, you don't have to be a business partner of ours to attend the session. And we believe this is another value add of a series of value adds that we've done for our business partners outside of the norm, right? Like, of course, we take their trust with the utmost seriousness when they send us business, because they're trusting their livelihood with us. So the service that we provide and our interaction with the AEs and how we communicate with our business partners, that's value add. But this is above and beyond, right? How can we continue to educate our business partners and expose them to individuals like Bill in regards to building a business plan? And let's face it, I view a business plan as kind of like a navigation, right? Like it's like a lighthouse. It's like a beacon, right? Like it keeps you on point. It helps you recalibrate. That's a word I like to use. It helps you kind of recalibrate where you are and what you need to do to reach your goals. So yeah, October 13th, 1 to 2 Eastern, Ultimate Guide to Building a Solid and Completely Market-Proof Business Plan. So I'm glad we kind of talked about that a little bit today. And again, you see my contact information there. Feel free to reach out to me. I will get you, set up with, attending and registered, and we'll get you all set up for that event. And again, it's an hour long, free of charge, and you don't have to be
So now, since we have your email address out here, let's give people another reason why people would be contacting you. What is a reason why brokers first start to do business with Flagstar? Like, what is some of the door openers that kind of get people in to do business with you guys? Now, obviously, we know actually how it goes once they're in, but initially, what is the thing actually that brings brokers in to say, I want to actually reach out to Flagstar, I want to get signed up to be a partner with them?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, right? And I'll give you kind of a macro level and then a micro level, right? So at the macro level, we've had tremendous success this year in growing the business partners as far as the number of clients that are approved both in broker and non-del with Flagstar. And I think some of it really goes down to our strength and stability of a 30-year commitment to the mortgage space, right? And to brokers specifically.
Yeah.
The foundation of mortgage at Flagstar is rooted in TPO, specifically broker and non-del. Now we've branched into delegated and bulk as well. But it's a 30-year commitment. It's ingrained in the company's DNA. So there's that. I think, secondly, I think everybody did a little evaluation of lenders through this pandemic, right? In regards to not only the stability, but the financial stability. And one of the things about Flagstar, we're an open book, right? Publicly traded company, federally regulated. We report our earnings on a quarterly basis. We are as open and transparent as anybody possibly can be in regards to this space, right? So what you see is what you get. I will tell you the other reason, and I do believe this with every fiber of my body being here a year now. You mentioned it at the beginning. We have a very tenured sales force that is best in class in their marketplace. You talk about community. These people are at the churches with their business partners. These people are at school functions. They're at athletic competitions. They're at the grocery store. They're at the dealership, right? Our AEs are in the community, entrenched with their business partners, and value add, first, best in class from that standpoint. And then look, I think there's, Flagstar's, always, I know before coming to Flagstar, I always competed with them. Yeah. And there is a very loyal following from, ease of use. We've continued to enhance that with a lot of things that we've done over the last 12 months to our platform for our business partners to use. We're continuing to invest in that. There'll be some more things rolling out by the end of this year, and we're really excited about some things that are on the drawing board for next year. So I think there's that. And then I also think, one of the things we have, is an operations staff that is, I will put up against anybody's in regards to open lines of communication, being able to communicate with the operations staff, and just the common sense approach that we take. So there's a lot of that. Like, I'm not going to tell you product and service, right? Who says they don't have all the product and who says they give terrible service, right? So, I'm not going to tell you that.
But no, really, our service is the best.
No. Our service is the best. Yeah. So I think a lot of that plays into it. And I do think there's a stability factor there, not only between the financial stability, when I think other companies were, maybe looking, at some real dire situations during the pandemic with liquidity and margin calls and things like that. You don't have that at Flagstar.
You don't have to go to a bank to beg for the money.
No. And look, again, I will go back to that. I think sometimes I say this and people kind of look at me like I'm crazy, but think about a 30-year commitment to the mortgage space, specifically brokers. Yeah. It's the DNA of the company. It's grounded in what mortgage is built on. And look, I'm not going to fool anybody, right? Like, do we have areas of opportunity we need to continue to work on and strive to be better? Absolutely, right? There's no doubt about it. We are not, by any stretch of the imagination, perfect. And by no stretch of the imagination do we believe that. But I know one thing, the sales force and the operations team and the executive team wake up every day focused on how do we get better? How do we improve? How do we make it so that our business partners have the ability to take care of their borrowers, right? The end user, the consumer, and make them look good. And that's what we're striving to do.
Fantastic. John, thank you so much for spending time with us. Please, everyone, hit John up. There's his email right there. Learn a little bit more about Flagstar and what they have going on there. And John, anything you want to say in closing?
No, hey, Andrew, I will tell you this. Yeah, real excited about the end of the year, excited about 2021. There's a lot of stuff getting ready to come from Flagstar from a technology standpoint. And then more importantly, we're going to keep doing things like this, right? Like we talked about that event on the 13th. That to me is really value add. And so we're going to continue to do that. And look, I'll say, like I say, when I talk to everybody, I certainly appreciate, our business partners' trust and belief in Flagstar. We take that extremely seriously. And we will continue to do that and support them the best way that we can possible. And then, hey, Andrew, it's great. Thanks for reaching out to me. I love doing this stuff with you. We've done this in the past a lot, and love the work you're doing. I follow this, so it was real exciting for me to, kind of connect with you again today, and appreciate you thinking of me.
Happy to do it, man. Happy to do it. So, everyone, thank you for watching another Mortgage Leadership Outlook. Next week, we have an amazing guest who's going to share how many originators have already broke 1,000 loans for the year. He's going to share actually how many originators, have already broke 250 loans for the year. And I heard that earlier today, mind just blown. So I'm super, super excited. We are seeing, people are doing actually, this year what previously they would consider being lifetime accomplishments. So it's just absolutely phenomenal stuff. John, thank you. Always great to spend time with you. And thank you for watching Mortgage Leadership Outlook. We come to you live every Wednesday, 4 o'clock East Coast time, 1 o'clock Pacific. We will see you next week. Everyone stay safe out there. And thank you so much for watching. John, stick around while I take everyone out here.
Yeah, absolutely. See you, everybody. Stay safe.